So, starting this video off, I thought I would start almost as a sort of my reaction to what is happening on screen. And yes, this is an hour-long video, and if I can shorten it, I'll try and shorten it. But there's a lot to go through on here. I've been away from sim racing for a little bit, just due to this shoulder injury, which I'm sure we're all aware of. And I've recently just had a toe operation as well on both feet, so I probably shouldn't have been doing this session yesterday. But I wanted to just get behind the wheel, having had a bit of a conversation through Messenger with, I think his name's GD Partik, if I get that right. I'll put a link somewhere on the video, because he's been I guess a little bit of inspiration to getting better lap times, especially at Spa for myself. He sent me a setup which we're not looking at in this video, and I'll not divulge any of that setup because it's his own setup, but I worked through a setup of my own quite some time ago, and I think this setup that I'm using now, I think it was from 1.7.10 maybe. So it's a setup I spent a little bit of time doing, and I'm just running a few laps here, just trying to get used to the car again, and just trying to enjoy myself having a bit of a session. But I thought I would use this video as kind of a bit of a lesson in where you sort of need to be looking, and just making like small adjustments that have a huge impact. I know Daniel Arlotti was saying that he struggles in some of the left-handers. I'm not sure if this is the double left-hander that he's on about. I have had some issues with, you can see the footage that we're watching, a few little blips. I'm not sure whether this was something to do with my capture card. I'm going to delete everything on my capture card because for some reason the audio was slightly off by about 10 seconds, so I don't know whether that's a capture issue from the Xbox. I've got a solid state drive that I use for capturing, but there's just a few fluctuations every now and then on the screen. I do apologise for that. But yeah, I'm just watching this on my monitor while I'm filming myself. Usually I would film myself driving and talking, but I do find that can sometimes give bad results. But as you can see, just looking down in the bottom there, looking at the tyre temperatures, you can see coming into this session, I've ran, 3 laps? This is just a weekend session. I've got the track temperature down to about 16, 17 degrees track temperature. So the air temperature is about 10 degrees, I think. But you can see the tyre pressures aren't getting anywhere near 27.5, 27.8. That would be the figure that we're trying to get to. And I think if ever you're trying to run a session and the pressures just aren't getting anywhere near into the 27s, you're really making life hard for yourself. And it is amazing the difference that 1 PSI can make, let alone a few points of a PSI, which we'll get on to. Now during the game, there's none of this blipping that you're seeing on the screen. It's just not present on the Series X. It runs really nice and smoothly, and so this is purely down to editing software and transferring it from Xbox to PC to iPhone. So hopefully it doesn't come across too badly, and you can still gain some details from this video. I will obviously put the full setup that I used during this video at the probably near the end, but you can see currently we're lapping, you can see there a 219.4, and by the end of this video that's going to be a 217. Now for some of you, I did put a poll on the Facebook group, and I put one also on my YouTube channel, and a number of people participated in that poll, and they suggested that they were hitting sort of 218s, 19s, 220s, and some people up above the 220 sort of lap time. So there's a huge room for improvement for any of those guys with this setup. Another member mentioning that he purely uses the Porsche. The Porsche is very hard to set up. It's a really difficult car to find that right balance with. So it could be something worth looking at changing. You see there we're hitting a low 219.2. But yeah, but obviously I've not set a perfect lap, but in my eyes some of the areas where I've ran slightly wide but marginally negligible, really, they weren't going to cause a huge difference to the lap time. So I still treat those lap times as valid lap times. So you can see here I'm just adjusting tyre pressures, and you can see the one I'm just doing now, 26.6 was the last hot reading. So if I just add a full PSI, I'm hoping that that's going to be 27.6 after 3 laps. So usually run like between 4 and 5 laps just to try and get those sort of working, operating pressures somewhere about right. I think initially they kind of peak a little bit. It is actually quite bad, isn't it, the jumpiness on the screen, but hopefully, like I say, you can take away from this something worth using in your next track exploration. So you can see I also have up on the left hand side the MFD, and I have been playing around with the brake balance or brake bias, as you can see there, especially through the next corner. I think it's Puon. Just trying to watch how the car rotates as you use the brake pedal. Obviously we're still not running correct PSI at the minute, but you can see the nose is a little bit temperamental turning in there, just because we're scrubbing at the front end. The tyre pressure's just not there yet. Usually here I'm sort of coming, just gently releasing off that brake pedal as I come through there, using the accelerator as sort of as you come off. Through here as well, it's a really, you see it's almost slightly over rotating there, and here's absolutely flat on the power. You're sort of trying to touch that inside curb but not mount it too much. It's like just like the half of the curb. Through this section we're going to be absolutely flat out, and just trying to, you can see him slowing down. I'm going to stay to the outside here, doesn't really matter if I pick up a penalty. So I'm thinking I've cleared this guy, but for some reason it really is fighting coming back and just spins me round. The AI, I have got them set quite aggressive, but like I've mentioned before, they do offer a good level of skill at that. I think it's 99% skill, 92% aggression. I'm running 5 on my rear wing during this session. I have raised the car quite a bit really to get through a rouge without bottoming out too much. And you can see I do like, in this early stage of warming the tyres up, sort of really trying to position the car where you actually want it when you flat out. So you're running a little bit wide, but you can carry much more speed on the exit, sort of coming out to that right hand curb, and as soon as you sort of hit that curb you're sort of dropping back down into second, trying to make the track as wide as you can through here, coming out to the curb on the right hand side, just one click down into 4th gear. Let the car run wide a little bit through there till you can get back on the power, but you only want to be applying that power when you can go to full throttle. And again here, just coming off that brake pedal, a bit of power, And if you feel like the car's not turning in, it's just releasing that power again, not applying the brake but just coming off the power. Let the car run a little bit wide, you can take quite a lot of that outside curb. And again, the nose turns in really nicely through this corner, through that last corner, just to be able to be absolutely full throttle. Again, it turns in really nicely through here. Braking, I don't tend to look for a board on the left hand side, it's just like a change in the tarmac, the colour of the tarmac. Trying to mount a little bit of that inside curb to be able to make the exit wider, and then back on the power. Still looking at those tyre temperatures, or the tyre pressures. 27.4 isn't particularly, especially like on the left hand side of the car. I'm losing tyre pressure at the left rear, 27.3. Still a little bit too low in my opinion. So can we carry it flat through here? Just run a little bit wide on the exit. But again, 27.2, it's almost scrubbing again at the front of the car, so the front right tyre pressure is just not high enough. A little bit too deep into that corner, really want to be picking up that inside curb. Just releasing off, and then back on the power, getting the power from the car to rotate the car on the exit of the corner. Don't want to touch that inside curb there. This is me just critiquing my own driving, and usually I'm doing this whilst I'm driving. Don't really want to pick up that inside curb, it just slows the car down a bit. Again, get wider on the right hand side. You can see the car's just unsteady coming through there. The rear end of the car's wanting to rotate a little bit more than I'd like. Just coming off that brake pedal. Not touching the brake pedal, just using the off throttle, on throttle to rotate the car. Just squeezing off the brake pedal and then on the power as soon as you can through the exit. It's certainly one of the corners where you want to be really early on the power. So tyre pressures again as we're finishing out the end of the lap. Front right tyre still a little bit too low for me. You can also see the rear brake discs are very blue, so that could really be affecting how much braking performance I'm getting. Obviously you don't want to clip that inside curb, but you can see again here the brake discs are a good colour. So it's, some areas are good, some are bad. That's the sort of line you want to take through the inside first corner, really clipping that inside curb. You could sometimes make a late apex and come sort of back and get a good exit. Again, that horrible bump, that really does need sorting out. It's just not consistent through a rouge, and that is going to cause you if you try and set the car up to come through a rouge and you hit that bump randomly on a couple of laps, it really does offset what you're trying to achieve. Again, a little bit too late on the brake for that corner, but still managed to carry good speed through there. Definitely needed to be earlier on the power through the exit. Not too bad. Again, it's one of those corners there where you coming off the power, on the power, off the power, on the power, and it just rotates the car. Sometimes you might be able to get it nailed perfectly and you can keep a steady rate of power through the whole corner. Sometimes if you just give that little bit of a lift, the front end turns in and it tightens up a little bit, and then you can get on the power and you get a much better exit. So see there, like quite an early shift into third gear sometimes gives a little bit more drive off the corner. And again there, that's probably perfect line through there. Just wanting to clip a tiny bit of the inside curb but not mounting the curb in any way. Again, I mean, this is a nothing corner in the Ferrari. It really does go through there really nicely. Some cars like the Nissan really do struggle, the Nissan GTR. Perfect through that corner, really, I think. Just managing to carry the speed through the corner. And we're down into the 217.6s. A little bit too wide on the exit, don't really want to pick up the outside yellow sausage curb. And you can see also on the left hand side I'm running TC1 at 9 and TC cut at 0. Some of you might think, or Aris, I really do forget whether it's Aris or Avis, mention you should be running, say, 6 and 6, 4 and 4, 3 and 3, and you just use them to fine tune. But I've found since speaking to GD Partick, just trying to run TC, if you've got the option of TC 1 and TC2, or as you look on the left hand side there, TC and TC cut, the TC is going to limit when the traction control is being activated. The TC cut is going to limit the amount of power, so it's a fine-tuning piece of technology on the car, I guess. So TC2 will limit the amount of power that's available. If it feels like the car is slightly losing grip, it might allow, say, 20% of the power, so you can still accelerate rather than fully cutting the engine. Whereas if we just get rid of TC2 and we just have full power available, and if the wheels are slipping, it's going to reduce, it's going to stop that from being used. But when there isn't any slippage, it's going to be 100% in effect, the power's going to be on. So we kind of just, it just seems to me like it adds far more acceleration off corners by removing TC2 altogether. And you can see there I just made a slight alteration to the brake balance or brake bias. It was initially 58 or 58.2, and through this session sometimes I'll come back to a car that I've set up and feel like it's not handling how I want to drive on that particular day. It just feels different, so I make subtle changes coming back to the car that just makes it feel more drivable. So we've gone to 59.2. Hopefully, obviously the brake balance is only going to affect the car through the braking phase of the corner, so it's never going to change the characteristics of the car itself. So if the car still oversteers mid-corner, it's still going to oversteer mid-corner, but we can try and reduce the oversteer effects on corner entry by increasing the brake bias more towards the front of the car, especially through this corner. I kept feeling through Pouon as I approached. I just didn't have the confidence to be on the brake pedal. Through this corner as well, it just felt like it was kind of over-rotating the car, coming off the brake pedal. I want some over-rotation because that's, in effect, that's what's turning the car. Same through here, through this section. It's always really on the brake pedal where we're rotating the car, unless you're obviously off the brake and it's just the characteristics of the car itself. Again, like adjusting the brake balance is never going to affect the car through that corner. But totally overshooting the braking zone again. A total negative effect to the start of the lap as well, because obviously you're not carrying as much momentum, so you should be kind of down on your delta if you've just struggled through that corner. Again, terrible apex, turn 1. But at this stage, again, I've made those subtle adjustments to the tyre pressures, and you can see the rear left tyre is a long way from where it needs to be, considering the front tyres are at 27.5 and 27.6. It really is lagging behind a long way. And it doesn't sound like much, but I think it makes a huge difference, getting those tyre pressures really into that right window. Again, this is probably the hardest section of corners, or string of corners, to get right at Spa, because there's so much time can be made in that section of corners. And obviously get it wrong, and obviously you can see it's took me a number of corners to actually get back on track again. So I'm wanting the front end to turn in there, but I don't want the rear end to lose traction, because I want to be back on the power as soon as I can. And while ever the rear end's not got traction, it's going to stop me putting the power on. You can see the little down on the dashboard. I'll try and highlight it whenever the traction control comes in. You get this little flickering blue light on the traction control. So that just tells you how much input the traction control is actually having on trying to stop you from spinning the car, really. But again, it's also stopping you accelerating. Much better. Definitely want to be clipping that inside curb on both corners. Obviously not mounting the curb too much. A better drive off turn 1, or off the last corner. Way too late on the brake, I think. Still managing to hold that. But again, you can see that rear left tyre just not up to pressure. A much nicer run through Eau Rouge, just changing as we near 250 kilometres. And this is definitely where the BMW, the M4 loses out, I think, on the back straight. I don't think I've ever seen it anywhere near 260 kilometres per hour. And just again, that little lift of the throttle. I'm not applying any brake pedal, just getting the nose to turn in, coming off the brake, coming off the accelerator. Little lifts back on and off the power to get the car to turn in, get the nose to bite more. Just trying to clip that inside curb, then back on the power. Just full lock as we're coming round here. There shouldn't be sort of opening the steering wheel, it's just a consistent lock through there. And again, it's just coming off that brake pedal. It's just a smooth release and then in with the power. Just sort of feeding in like that. You see the brake, just watch the brake trail as it comes off. It's not like a snap off, or else it's going to really upset the car. You're just easing off the brake pedal. And like I say, I've spent some time setting this car up, so I'm not going back and forward making adjustments. It's just time to focus on the driving aspect of the car. See there, too much. Excuse me. So you see we're into the 217s quite happily, but I'm still not happy with these pressures. See there, 2 more. I sometimes think you could add 2 more PSI, but it's not. You see there it was 27.3. Just adding 2 more doesn't mean it's going to be 27.5. Here I'm just looking over the tyre delta, seeing what sort of wear I'm getting across the tyre. Is it too much? Maybe I could reduce some of the camber, but I don't think so. I think it's wearing quite nicely. The inside of the tyre should be wearing more than the outside of the tyre. Just coming back to just double check whether I can employ this system of coming off the corner. I'm just checking on my wheel that I can switch between 1 and 9 just using the buttons on my wheel, just to see if it'll give me better traction coming off the corner. I don't think it's massively noticeable in the Ferrari, but I really did notice it in the BMW, and sometimes I just carry way too much speed on the exit. Always so keen to just get back out in a space on the circuit. Just carried way too much speed through here, but it's a good thing to practice getting out of the pits quickly when you're doing those pit stops. See, I'm running, I think it's 48 litres of fuel I've got on board, and obviously using that calculator that I mentioned in one of my short tips videos. Definitely something worth using if you're doing longer stints. I know one of the other members of the group mentioned using the app that's set up for Assetto Corsa Competizione with the sliders, and it does work really well. I also have that, but I just think the other fuel calculator link that I put in, it will be in the description. The other fuel calculator just offers more detail. If you're running an endurance session, it'll give you an idea where you could do your pit stops. So we're still actually in this session. I'm still actually trying to find the sweet spot with the tyres. And I know for some people that don't want to spend the time testing, I thought I'd leave this whole video in there because this is the amount of time that is required to understand how the car feels, how to attack corners better, how to actually get really good tyre pressures. Obviously you'll need to change these for every track temperature that you come across, every condition, and I think when you're able to do an hour session, just getting the tyres into that perfect window, it makes a difference. You can see I'm in the 217s pretty regularly. Once we get in the flow of things, they're just back-to-back 217 laps. Alright, at 35 Celsius these might be 218 laps, but on console you don't come across loads of drivers that are hitting perfect laps, 218s, 217s on a very regular occurrence. You could quite easily win most lobbies that you go into hitting a 218. And it'll give you a good understanding as to what's required using the setup that's in here. If you come to set up other cars, I know there's an issue with the Ghost, something that I might put a section of that in this video somewhere. There is actually, when you run like hot lap sessions, you could change the Ghost to a different car, and I tried that in this session, coming out of the same session and then loading, going in the same session with the BMW M4, but loading the Ghost that I've set in the hot lap session in the Ferrari, and it just doesn't work. I don't think it's ever worked. I think it'll only ever allow you to use the Ghost of the car you're actually driving. So you can see here I'm up on my delta here, and again it's something I'm always trying to aim for. Trying to be faster through certain corners, through certain sections of the circuit. You can see here just eking out just with those subtle adjustments on that tyre pressure. You see how they're all in kind of a better range, 27.8, 27s at the rear, 0.7, and it's that 0.7, so from 0.2, so from like 27.3 to 27.8, it feels to me like the car is better. It's coming off the turns better, it's gripping better, and having a positive delta or a negative delta is what you're aiming for all the time with these subtle adjustments. So much more time through that last corner there, obviously just running wide and losing all that delta, but certainly gives you more confidence to push on that next lap, knowing that the car is it's moving forward and it's getting to be a better car. Loads of time gained on the run into that corner, but you can see I lose it all on the exit. So maybe before I'd broke a little bit earlier so that I was slower into the corner, but I'm carrying more speed out of the corner. But it's the same old saying, fast in, slow out. So slow in, fast out. And obviously when you're coming out onto a long straight, you want to be fast out rather than fast in. Still not quite nailing that corner. Just not hitting the apexes. You see again now, looking at the front right tyre after we've done one lap on it, the tyre pressure's come right down on the front right. So it's these little things that are just offsetting the tyre pressures everywhere. So the whole right hand side of the car now has lost tyre pressure, and the left hand side of the car is looking good. Maybe a little bit too good. So I went for an early shift up there just to see if it felt any better. Didn't particularly gain anything, didn't lose anything. So 26 minutes of this session still left. And I feel like I'm sort of hitting the ceiling of what the car's capable of. But obviously you can see there I've made up 0.2 again. And then lose it again. So there's time to be gained somewhere. Feels like a better run-in. Managed to make up a tiny bit, but back to equal delta now really. And then the tiniest penalty for running through there. So I'll still carry on with this lap. Much better picking up some of that inside curb. Should have been earlier on the power really. It feels like the front end of the car probably needs to rotate a tiny bit more. Really nice and early on the power there. Quick change through the gears. Back to sort of equaling out the delta. A little blip of the throttle and back on again. Probably should have just stayed at full throttle really rather than giving that little blip. Quick shift through there as well. Obviously running a tiny bit wide. I'd have probably picked up a penalty for that one as well. But we're up a tiny bit on the delta. Front tyre pressure's just too much on the left. Front left tyre. And again, I just felt like I was way too late on the brake there. Obviously fast in, slow coming out. You can see all that time's lost coming in there, and I'd start to think front tyre needs a little bit of adjusting, and that rear brake ducts just seem to be getting too cold. Two 17s I'd have loved to have seen the 216. Obviously, as this session goes on as well, you often find that the track does it does rubber in a little bit, but I've only got 11 cars. I've only chosen to have 11 cars in this session just because sometimes they do just get in the way a bit, having 20 odd cars, especially when you're just running. Really, it is a practice session, but that's how I want to be mounting the curb on the way in. Take a tiny bit on the left hand side, tiny bit on the inside, maybe too wide on the exit there. And slowly sort of down through the gears through there. I want to still carry momentum as you sort of hitting that outside curb, taking that drop down early on the power through there as well. Not wanting to get that rear end sliding too much. You can see while we've got lower tyre temperatures or pressures, it was just sliding a little bit. Again, it's a very, very important technique to master coming off the brake pedal. Heavy on the brake pedal initially to get the car slowed down. I'm sure it's Ross Bentley that says you want to get 2/3 of your braking done in the first third of the corner, which is, it's a bit of a weird saying, but obviously you're just smashing that brake pedal and getting as much braking done while the car's straight, and then you can trail the braking off as you're hitting the apex of the corner. Again, you don't really want to hit that outside curb, it just unsettles the car. Making that exit as wide as you can. You can see there I'm just trying to employ that, dropping the traction control to 1 on the exit. I'm sure here I'll show you how not to do it. No, that's probably how to do it. Good exit off the corner. Sometimes I'm a little bit too eager with it and the car sort of lights up the rear wheels. So you can see obviously having closed out now the rear brake ducts. I think we're only on lap 2 and the rear tyres are at 28.1 now, so they're sort of coming into that margin where they're probably getting too much PSI, so again they'll start to lose grip, or optimum grip is going to be not achieved, but we're still up on the delta. It feels like it's been a positive move. A little bit of a hesitation on the power, but you can see two tenths up now, just having made tiny adjustments to the brake ducts and to tyre pressures. It's these subtle changes that make a difference in the grip level through every corner. Car's rotating well. Nearly 3 tenths up. Slightly ruined by that one corner there. Really did take that terribly. A little bit too eager to try and get the delta sort of back in it positive, and that kind of upset me there. Obviously you can see instantly making those changes to that rear tyre PSI. Don't think there was any other changes needed for that. You can see there the last time I set it up was 1.7.10. I always like to add the setup, the version to the setup when I name a setup. So once again back out trying to get the tyres up to temperature, and obviously I've got this Ferrari coming up. Is he going to allow us to get past him through this section?
Clear on the left.
They're just so annoying sometimes, the AI. But he will give me a helping hand at one point during this during this session. It's kind of like when F1 drivers sort of give each other a tow. He gives me a very nice tow down this Conrad Straight. Is it the Conrad Straight? Maybe that's Bathurst. It's not Hanger Straight. I never seem to remember all the names on these circuits. So we go through Spa, up and over Radion. Never remember this section. So it's just that little lift. You can see the power's in and out through there, just getting the front of the car to rotate. Bit of brake. You could probably use all that exit if you're on PC. I don't think the track limit penalties are anywhere near as bad. Just trying to pick up that inside curb. Obviously you can see we've not got tyre temperatures, tyre pressures just yet. Obviously you'd expect the car to understeer a little bit. Early shifting up. So important to be early on the power through there, so you're carrying it all the way down this back straight. Like I say, it's sometimes hard to get through here in the Nissan GTR. The front end's just nowhere near as grippy. Really is important at Spa to have a good amount of front end grip. See there coming off the corner, TC1 back to TC9. Too deep into the corner. And that is just how critical you need to be, really. If you miss that apex, it's just too deep. It's going to impact the exit. Still looking at them tyre pressures, not particularly happy with front right. Front right could still do with a tiny adjustment. Very hard to keep the front end gripping through there. Just allowing it to run. The more speed you can carry through there, again you carry it out onto here. Too wide. Again, just looking at the left hand side of the car, the tyre pressures just seem to be all wrong. And it's these subtle changes, it really is. You adjust the tyre pressure on one wheel, it will have an impact on other wheels. So it really is a mission to try and get them perfect. Too wide in the exit once again, you can't really use all that runoff. I do thank you if you've stayed and watched this far into the video. You will be rewarded with this setup. I'm sure you could have just skipped it, but there's a lot of learning, I think. And if you are new watching this, please do smash that subscribe button, hit the bell icon, do the obligatory like button as well, that would really help. And leave a comment, let me know whether the setup that you're going to get at the end of here has helped you, whether any sort of tuition through this video has helped you progress. I do love seeing the positive feedback, or even if you've got any negative feedback, it's all good. Feedback's all good. So you can see there the rear tyre is still getting a little bit too high pressure. It's just going to result in lost grip potential. You don't want to get the left tyre over that curb completely. It just reduces traction off the corner. Still a pretty scruffy lap, to be honest, but obviously still one that would be valid during a race. And we're still going to be in the 217s. So if you're in the 220s, it's a massive step forward. Just balancing the car through there, on the power, off the power, getting the nose to turn in. Just a really tricky corner. You don't want to mount that inside curb too much. Again, it just scrubs speed. Still not happy with the rear pressures, and you think that the pressures don't make a massive difference, but they are so important. They're probably the biggest fundamental change having good tyre pressures will make to the whole handling characteristics of the car. Carried loads of good speed through there, lost some on the exit. Obviously, like I said, fast in, slow coming out, but still managed to carry at least some of that. Again, not a great exit. Too late on the brake. But really consistent, the Ferrari through Eau Rouge. Just trying out a different ABS here. Like I say, you're always looking for the small things that will make a difference. Nice entrance to the corner, very unstable on the entry though. Just felt like I was losing the car. Again, the PSI at the rear could be an issue with that. Or it could be driver error. Don't always put problems with the car, or don't always think it's problems with the car. There is a driver element to some of these issues as well. You could have just carried too much speed, trying to ask too much of the car. Or driver abilities, trying to ask too much of the car. Just running too wide again. I do think some areas the penalty system is a little bit too much on console. You see a lot of drivers running far wider on PC. It's almost like the boundaries are completely different. So again, here we've got Mr. Ferrari. It's going to give me a really nice helping hand through this lap. Again, much better exit. So there's definitely time to be made. Oh, he's going to give me a nice hand there as well. But again, that rear tyre pressure still felt like it needed adjusting. 28.2 at the rear. So I just felt like that was hindering me at the end of the straight. Turning into that tight right-hander. Just felt like that was an issue. And obviously if during the race you start to find that the rear end again is being a little bit less compliant, you've got oversteer coming into the corner, you can just adjust the brake bias. Maybe you'd go to 59.4 if you were losing the rear end of the car, 59.6 if you're accelerating off the corner and you're getting too much wheel spin, corner exit, oversteer on corner exit, you could just increase traction control to 9. You could even start bringing in that element TC cut, add 1 or 2. There's just always ways that you can adjust the characteristics of the car during a race as tyres degrade, as track conditions change. The brake balance is the main focus of changing the characteristics of the car, especially on corner entry and corner exit. You can adjust that with traction control. So never feel like you're stuck with a car once you've set off from the line. Obviously, if your tyre pressures have been negatively affected by air temperature, that's something that you can only change that in the pit. But the car characteristics, as things change through a race, certainly can change them with brake balance and traction control. I'm not sure if you've got buttons assigned on your wheel to adjust your anti-roll bars on the move. I'm not sure if it's something you can actually do on the move, but that would certainly be an option if you haven't got that set up already, to have it set up if it's an option. I know it is in some games. So just trying that TC4 again, the ABS4. Didn't particularly give it chance in the last session. I don't think I end up sticking with ABS4. I think I do go back to 3, just what feels comfortable to me. But I'll certainly try other things during each session. This for me is a practice session, so you're trying to get as much out of it as you can. Again, if you're enjoying the video, please hit the subscribe button, share it on the various social media groups, pages, whatever. And let me know if you're enjoying the little short video tips as well. I know there's not too many viewers for those, but I think even if I get 100 viewers, it's 100 people that have benefited from that information. And again, let me know if this has helped you out, if the videos helped you out on understanding the track a little bit more, and if the setup helps you out as well. And if you do struggle with oversteer on corner entry, again, just increase the brake bias, 59.4, 59.6, give a little bit less. Or if you feel like you could handle more and your braking is a little bit different to mine, you might feel like you want to bring that rotation down a bit further. I think an oversteering car is definitely a better car for lap time, but it becomes a more demanding car to drive. So you can see a huge increase in the lap time there, almost into the 2:16s. Terrible exit, but through those adjustments you see now 27.9 around the tyres, 27.8, a much more consistent level of grip from the tyres throughout the whole lap. So a good exit off turn 1. Like I say, always trying to get those tenths in each corner. Obviously you're going to reach a point where that's not achievable, but you're always trying to make time in each corner. And it gives us a really nice tow along here. Just in the right place to be able to get back in front of him. Picking up that inside curb nicely. On the power, a little bit of a release, back on the power. Braking at the curb on the left hand side. Just releasing and then back on the power, carrying as much speed around there as you can. Touching the curb, then back into second gear, back on the power, keeping out to the right hand side of the circuit. Shift down to fourth gear, try and pick up that inside curb, ran a little bit too wide, but trying to get back on the power as soon as I could. Smooth heavy with the brake pedal, then easing off as we come out here, just nice and trail it. Again, just releasing off the power, back in with the power. Really messed this one up, I think. Back in with the power, a little bit of a lift, probably should have stayed flat on the power. Didn't get that last corner nailed at all, so losing a lot of momentum out of the corner, and that affects this whole straight. Tyre pressure's still not looking too bad, 27.7, but better all round really. Not too bad, we're close to a 2:16, so I was pretty chuffed with that one. A huge leap forward in the lap time from just getting those tyre pressures really in the right window. Closing out that rear brake duct just sort of added a bit more temperature to the brakes so that they're a bit more in their optimum window for braking. Obviously, having gained a 10th in that first lap, I nailed it obviously, so in this second lap round, obviously not as fast. I want to be hitting the same sort of lines and braking that I did in that first good lap. But still managing to be within a 10th of that lap, so I'm still pretty happy with how this lap's going. Still nice and early on the power, still within about a 10th. 2 tenths now. Didn't really want to mount that inside curb, just puts you really out on the dirt, so lost everything really in that last corner. Tried to shift a little bit early. You're kind of just chasing my tail really in this last section, but I remembered I didn't get this exit right at all, probably running a little bit too wide, but still 217.3, and tyre pressure's looking pretty good again, so I've got 3 consistent laps where the tyre pressures are maintaining a good level of PSI. It took a long time getting there in that one session, but that's what you want to be aiming for really, is a consistent tyre pressure. Obviously just finishing out the lap, not ideal. And I think the session ends there, so we'll have to add the next portion of the video when we look at the setup. I'll probably just talk through that without the video. But you can see there that the sector times that you want to be aiming for. So I do think you have to actually wait in this session, you can't just skip it for some reason. Especially when it's just the AI, I think you should just be able to skip this session, the section at the end. You see there, track temperature, 18 Celsius, optimum conditions. Obviously we've not got any environmental effects. So just moving on to the setup then, I'll try and do this just talking through it as we are. Obviously setting the tyre pressures as the track requires, and then just making subtle adjustments, trying out the ABS. If you feel like it just feels better on 4, go with 4. Obviously adjusting or just looking at the tyre delta, it does wear quite nicely across the tread of the tyre. Moving on to the mechanical grip, things that I'd suggest if you feel like the car doesn't rotate or rotates too much, you could increase the brake balance, or if you feel like you could handle more, decrease the brake balance. You could lift the rear ride height a tiny bit to get more rotation, and if the temperature is a bit more hotter at certain circuits, you're going to need to increase them brake ducts. But thanks for watching, hope you found it really useful. As always, please do leave comments in the comment section. I'd love to hear more from subscribers, and if you aren't already subscribed, please do think about subscribing. Thanks for watching the video. Ciao for now.